Okay, so we're in the middle of Siman Kuf Lamed Tes. This is, I believe, it's the fourth Shir in Chanukah. So, and we still are only up to Sif Hey. There's a lot to talk about, obviously. So, Siman Kuf Lamed Hey, Sif Hey. Wait, we did
No, no, right?
we did Hey already, right?
You did. Oh,
Yeah, we did Hey, I believe. Okay, Sif Vav. Minig Pashut Bimdina Seinu. He says it's an accepted minig that we do kimahadrin min hamahadrin, that we do the mitzvah of Hanukkah in the best of the best way. So everyone knows in the Gemara it goes through a different order of what's considered mahadrin, what's considered the basic way to do the mitzvah, what's the mahadrin min hamahadrin. When it comes to Hanukkah, it's probably one of the only times that it's accepted across Klal Yisrael that we do mahadrin min hamahadrin. The Sephardim have a little bit slightly different. I think they just do one person per house, but they also do mahadrin that everyone lights one more candle every single night. So they do sort of in the middle. Now, why is it that we do mahadrin? Why is it accepted that everyone says we do mahadrin mina mahadrin on Hanukkah? So one thing is we have from the Alter Rebbe there's no Alter Rebbe on Hanukkah as we know, but there is Alter Rebbe in other places. So the Alter Rebbe writes by Hilchos Shabbos, where he's talking about lighting the candles, and we'll come there maybe when we learn it in Hilchos Shabbos. So over there he mentions about how many candles to light and what's the minimum, what's the maximum. Either way, the point is that he mentions over there in Akutas Achra that when it talks about Hanukkah, we do Mahadrin is different than Shabbos. And by Hanukkah, we do Mahadrin mina Mahadrin, and he explains that everyone lights and whatever the chiyuvim are. And he says the reason is because of Persumei Nisim. In other words, when you do it differently, when you do it in a way that's not the normal way of how it's done, and you do extra, you show that it's something that's very precious or whatever it is. So therefore, that's more of a presuming nisa as opposed to Shabbos or whatever. So that's one reason given why when it comes to Hanukkah, everyone basically does Mahadin Mina Mahadin, which is actually interesting because I think you see it the Ashkenazim actually paskin like the Rambam, which is really more Sephardim, and the Sephardim really paskin like Tosfos, which is more Ashkenazic. So it's a unique mixture. But either way, so one reason is because of that. Another reason that's given is also because the whole mitzvah the whole story of Hanukkah was really mahadrin mina mahadrin, meaning technically they had oil, it wasn't pure, they could have used it because everyone was tamei. Or another place I saw what they could have done is they could have made the wicks very, very, very thin and small. And if they would have made the wicks very, very thin and small, then it would have had a small little flame, and that small little flame could have lasted for a long time. If they had enough, if they had enough to fill it up, each of those, as we'll see later in the Gemara and Sukkos, when we talk about the different lights that they had in the courtyards of the Beis Hamikdash, we see over there that the keli that the oil went into was not so small. It wasn't like a small little candle that we use. So if they fill that up the way it was, let's say it was about a cup each, I don't know, or more, and then you make a very, very small little wick, it could have lasted a lot longer. Maybe not all 8 days, maybe close to 8 days, but the point is that they didn't do that. They lechatchila went and they wanted it to be big candles, big lights, the way they always did it, even though they knew that they might run out. And that's why the whole nest was mahadrin mina mahadrin. So either way, the point is that you see that it is a unique thing that we do mahadrin mina mahadrin when it comes to Hanukkah, and basically everyone does. Yeah.
we know how big the jug was, how much.
The jug we don't know, but we do technically because we know how much it said there was enough for one day to fill up the menorah, and we know how big the cups of the menorah was. How many lugim it was? I don't know. I don't know offhand, but you could do the math. Meaning we know how big each cup was that they had in the actual menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. We know the size. I don't know what it was, but whatever it wasn't like the small little ones that we use now. And those small little ones that we use last 3 hours. So imagine you had a big one and a small wick, it could last a long time. Either way, okay, not to get too distracted. So everyone accepts the minig, he calls it here a minig pashut. Pashut means like spread, it's a widespread minig. That everyone will agree that we do mahadrim mina mahadrim. Now, what does it mean mahadrim mina mahadrim? So number one, shemadlikin kol echad ve'echad mimnei habayis. Number one, that everyone lights. Right? In the Gemara, it says you just have to have one person lighting in the house. So the first mahadrin is that everyone in the house is lighting. And now how do they light? The first night, one light. Fine. That's just one hidur. And then, but the second night, they add a candle. So now that's the second hidur. So the mahadrin, mina mahadrin is that instead of one person lighting one candle, we have everyone lighting and increasing. Now, this is important to know because sometimes if you don't have enough oil, let's say you have enough oil just for 8, like they had in the Beis Hamikdash, just for 8 days, yeah, just eight candles. So what you would do is you would light, yeah, just that's all you have. You're stuck somewhere, that's all you have, whatever the story is. So what you would do nowadays, it's not so common because Baruch Hashem, we live in in abundance. But in places where you're stuck somewhere where they used to be, so they would do one candle the first night, one candle the second night, one candle the third night, one candle the fourth night. If they have enough for 9 candles, they would do one candle the first night, 2 candles the second night, and then one candle going forward. So in other words, it's good to know that the etzem mitzvah is really only one candle. And everything beyond that is just a hidur. Okay. Now we'll leave that for now. So that is number one. And then we continue to add every single night. Everyone will add one more every night until the last day we light all 8. Now, because everyone will be lighting, so therefore we have to do this in a very careful way. Because imagine you walk into, let's say, you walk into yeshiva, yeah, and you look at a table and all you see is like a bunch of candles. So you're never going to realize who's this who, right? What's one candle? Is this one person lighting 2 candles, or is it 2 people lighting 1 candle? Is it the second night? Is it the first night and there's 100 people in shul? Is it the 100th night of Chanukah? As the famous Charlie Buttons used to say, something about 183rd day of Chanukah, whatever. He has to always counting, I don't know, whatever, so you're always working from Chanukah, but you don't know when you walk into a room and you just see a whole bunch of stuff. You wouldn't know. So therefore, the halacha is you should put them all in separate places. Make sure each guy is lighting in their own area. And this would be kedei sheyeh haker kamaneris madlikin. So it should be clear how many candles. Is it, like we said, 2 people lighting 2, or is it 1 person lighting 2? You would never know. What did I say? Sorry, if it's 2 people lighting 1 each, or if it's 1 person lighting 2. So therefore, it should be in its own place. Now, poskim do say that nowadays this is not so, it doesn't really work. It's not as important anymore because nowadays everyone has their own menorah. Once you have your own menorah, so someone walks in and they see that there's a menorah with 1 candle, so they know. They see a menorah with 2 candles, they know that it's the second night. Now, in a place like yeshiva, then you do have to be careful because in yeshiva sometimes people are just lining up the candles next to each other, which we spoke about yesterday that you could technically do, but then you do have to make sure that each one should be separate from each other and they shouldn't all be a mishmash and no one could tell what's what. Line them up nicely, make sure that they're being done in a neat way. Ideally have a menorah, obviously, but we're saying when you can. Together with this also would be, is, let's say you come to the first night of Chanukah in yeshiva and you don't have a menorah, but someone else has a menorah next to you. So you say, I have a good idea. I'll light on one side of the menorah and you light on the other side of the menorah. And this way, we could both be using an actual menorah. So the halacha is that you could do that because if one person lights all the way on this corner and the other person lights on that corner, so it's clear that it's 2 separate people lighting. Because if it was 1 person, then he would light them right next to each other. No, he would light them next to each other. The fact that you're doing it like that, you still could. So what would happen on the 4th night? So now you have a little bit of a problem. When it comes to the 4th night, then it looks like a full menorah. Is it 2 people lighting 4, or is it 1 person lighting 8? So it gets a little tricky. Okay, but some of the poskim would say there's no real answer. Some would say, well, a lot of menorahs, they have stuff in the middle. They put like a Magen David, or they'll put the Shamish. So if that's the case, it looks already separate. Others would say it doesn't make any sense because when you light on the 8th night, it's exactly going to look like that. There's no difference. So I would suggest that the 4th night, you shouldn't do that. But either way, yeshiva should be giving you off for the 4th night. You should be home, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. But you could light up to the 4th night. You for sure could. After that, then either get it. You could use like we said, you could use the candles themselves with the cap on the bottom, and it could hold itself. Okay. And here you have another interesting halacha, which is that if you don't make any difference, if you put the menorah in the same place where you always have it, then no one will ever know that it's Chanukah. They're going to think that it's just another night. Again, also in those days, they used to light candles more commonly. Nowadays, we don't really do that. So it could be if you take a menorah, even if it's in the same place it always is, and you light it, it could be that it'll be clear today's Chanukah, because otherwise you don't light candles on a random Tuesday. But for sure then, when every night they used to light candles, so every night you have a menorah displayed on top of your fireplace, right? The mantle, whatever they call it. And then all of a sudden one night you're lighting it and you're making a bracha. What's the difference? So if that's the case, you should really move it, which again, for us, as we'll see in a second, is not really going to be a problem because we have a special place where we light it and no one leaves their menorah there the whole year. But if someone is leaving it in a place where it always is, they display it by their window the whole year, and now they want to light it by the window. So then you have to make sure that it's not in the same place like it always is. Fine. Siv Zayah. Mitzvahs ner Chanukah, the whole idea of ner Chanukah, the whole idea of the mitzvah of Chanukah, the main mitzvah is really pursuing Nisa to spread. Everyone should know about the miracles that happen. So therefore, the mitzvah would be, meaning the proper way to fulfill the mitzvah, is lahadlik b'pesach hasamuch l'reshus habayis, is to light it specifically by the doorway open to the reshus harabim, mishum pursuing Nisa. Now, what does this mean? So you have a lot of doors. Specifically in the olden days, as we're learning in the Gemara, everything always Torah. When you learn Torah, it always intersects. So here we were learning in the Gemara all about the Chatzar. The Chatzar leads to the Maveh, leads to the Reshus Harabim. So if you light by your door, is that opening to the Reshus Harabim? No. By the entrance to the Chatzar, that's to the Reshus Harabim. So they would actually light it by the doorway to the Chatzar, apparently, which was leading to the Reshus Harabim, because that's where people will see it. Otherwise, if they're lighting up by their own door, they might as well just light it inside their house because you're in an enclosed area where no one will see it. The point was that people should see it. But
the street. You don't have to do that.
well, okay, well, we didn't get to our minig yet. We're just saying what the way that it used to be done. We'll talk about our minig soon. And this is the way they used to do it in the times of the Mishnah and the Gemara. They would light it over there, and everyone could see it, and it was wonderful. And there's a Gemara. I don't know if you guys learned it this year or no, maybe another year. I forget where you learned about it. That if you have that if a guy's going with his camels, with his stuff, and he passes by the door, and there's a menorah, and there's other stuff. So if there's a menorah, then it's normal. You're supposed to have a menorah there because that was the normal way to do it. Okay. Oh, is this here? Okay. So now, Bisman Hazeh, nowadays, though, it's not, we don't do this anymore. Why not? So he says like this, nowadays, Shanu Darim Beina Umais, we live in areas where there's Goyim. And therefore, specifically what he's referencing is that it was dangerous. You couldn't light it in a place where it was in the public. People would get upset. They would start, pogroms or things like that, unfortunately. So therefore, madlikim b'bayishu darba. So the minig became that you light it inside in your house. That's why the minig started officially, right? Now, obviously, as we know in Chassidus, that anything that happened or changed, it's a reason b'mayla. But for some, that's the way. This is the core of the reason. The beginning of the reason was that it was pasha dangerous. You couldn't do it anymore, and therefore and another reason also given was because if you think about where we practiced where we practiced Yiddishkeit, meaning in those days everyone was in Eretz Yisrael, and if you're in Eretz Yisrael, the weather during this time of year is actually pretty nice, very similar to here, where it's not so you're not so windy, you don't have storms, you don't have things like that. But once people move to places where it's much windier and colder and whatever, then lighting outside obviously would not be practical. So what people do is they have a glass thing that goes on top of it. So you could do that, but the Chachamim never said that you have to go to such extremes. So therefore, it became the accepted minig that we do it inside. Now, some people have a minig. Okay, they're lighting it inside. I think everyone lights inside. Maybe in Eretz Yisrael they switch back, but everywhere else in the world, we basically light indoors. But some people have the minig that if there's a window that faces Rosh Hashanah, so then you'd lick him sham, because then they could accomplish the same thing of pursuing Nisa for everyone outside if they leave it by the window, even though it's indoors. Now, if you don't have a window that faces Rosh Hashanah, so let's say you have a window, they say, that opens to the bathroom, whatever, the place can speak about all these things, or it's open to your backyard and no one will see. So then obviously it's going to defeat the purpose. So there's no pursuing Nisa for anyone outside. So who is the pursuing Nisa for? For people inside. So if they're pursuing Nisas for people inside, so then madlikim eitzela pesach, then you do it by any doorway inside your house. Okay, now which doorway should you use? So it should be in a place where you sleep, okay? A place where you sleep. That means that in those days, maybe they slept in different places than they ate, but it should be in the home that you will sleep in. But in the house itself, so I don't know, I've seen both. I've seen that where we see that there's an importance to doing it in the place where you eat. But the reason mainly is because that's where you hang out more during the day. So because that's where you hang out more during the day, it's going to be seen more. And then I've also seen that, no, it's all part of one house. And if it's all part of one house, you could do it anywhere. So get the place that has the most exposure, as they say. And if you have little kids, make sure it's safe, obviously. And that doorway, if it's going to be there, everyone's going to bump into it. And there's no way for a little kid to pass by without getting us hair on fire. Then obviously that's not going to be something you should do. So you have to be smart about it. But in general, it seems like the door where people is in the most like sort of public area, in the middle of the house, whatever it is, where people eat is probably the best way how it should be done. Now, mitzvah shianichim betafach hasamuch lepesach mismail. Now, the way you do this is like this. You should put it within a tefach of the opening of the door. It should be close to the doorway. Now, why do you want it to be close to the doorway? You put it on the left side, in close to the doorway. So this way you have the mezuzah will be on the right side, and the menorah will be on the left side. And this way, you're going to be surrounded with mitzvahs. In other words, like this: the ikar mitzvah is always on the right, just like everything we do on the right. Everything is always on the right. But over here, you have, when you come to any doorway, you're going to have a mezuzah already. So once you have a mezuzah on one side, so even though there's an advantage to doing the menorah on the right side, but we'd rather put it on the left side, and this way you're surrounded by mitzvahs. So what does that tell you? If let's say you have a doorway that doesn't have a mezuzah, then you put it on the right side. So if you go to a hotel, for example, on Chanukah, you're going touring, and there's no mezuzah there, you put it on the right side, because that's where it's supposed to go. If you have a mezuzah, then you put it on the left side. And even, by the way, sometimes you put up a mezuzah only midrabanan. You don't really need to put up a mezuzah, and that's why you don't even make a bracha. So let's say doorways that don't have doors. So according to the Rambam, for sure, you don't need to put a mezuzah there. So we do, but we don't make a bracha on that doorway. So, right, if you're putting up mezuzahs in your house, you have to make sure you're making the bracha on the right type of doorway. But the point is that even there, when you do have a mezuzah, that's fine. The mezuzah is there, and you put it on the other side, even though it's only midrabanan. Now, the best place to do it is not within a tefach close to the doorway, but rather within the ear space of the doorway itself. So some doorways are pretty narrow, so that's fine. But if you have the actual thing is whatever, let's say a tefach and a half, a couple inches, so you put your menorah inside that ear space. That's the best place how to do that. Now, okay, first of all, in yours, there should be a picture, yeah, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Inside the hollow space of the doorway is where you'll put it. Now, what happens if you come in yeshiva? You're going to go light the Chanukah candles, and you're going to come late, yeah? You were late, you came from saying whatever. And all of a sudden, you see there's 30 menorahs there, yeah? So you're not getting anywhere near a tefach of the doorway. So are you missing out this whole maila of being with a tefach close to the doorway? So the place can say, not really. If one guy basically put his menorah within a tefach of the doorway, so then everyone else lights close to him within a tefach, like we mentioned before, it has to be everyone separate, so it looks separate, but close to his, and then it becomes like a chain. Yeah, so you have a chain from the doorway till where you will light, and it's the same thing as if you lit it within a tefach, and it's totally going to be the same. You didn't lose anything by doing that. Now let's take a quick look at the bottom. Where it says Sif Hey. No, on the bottom where it says Sif Hey. So by the minhag. So over there it says Minig Rabbeinu Nisiyenu Shoyim Madlikin Al Pesach Achad Achadorim V'Loi Al Hachaloin. Our minig is that we dafke put it in the doorway of a house and not by the window like some people do. Now there are some people, by the way, that say B'chlal about lighting indoors. That from the Arizal it says that it became a thing that you always light it indoors in a doorway. So there is basis to this. I don't know. I don't think it was ever. We do it as we'll have later in our Gemara. That once our Rebbe said that this is the way we do it, so that's what we do. But there is some sort of basis of Kabbalah that it should be that it should be dafka inside the house by a doorway. Then we'll do Sif Vav, where it says ve'einanu medaikim. Is darum v'tzafon munachim or mizrachum ma'ilo munachim. Some people basically they're meduyak that they want the menorah to be the same way it was in the Beis Hamikdash. So they're going to face it in the same direction like the one in the Beis Hamikdash. So they'll find a doorway that matches up if they're doing it by a doorway or a window. But our minig is that Rebbe says we're not nog in that, or we're not makbid in that. So you could do however you do, and it's not going to be an issue. You put it in the doorway like we said, and that's it. Fine. Sif Ches. Mitzvah lanicham lamayla mishloisha tvachim min akarka. There is a mitzvah to put it higher than 3 tvachim from the ground, off the ground. Anyone want to give a reason why they think, based on Gemara and Sukkah, why you want it to be higher than 3 tvachim?
Empty space.
That if it's going to be too close to the ground, then it's almost like it's almost like it's on the ground. So some people do say that that's the reason why. So either way, you want it to be higher than 3 tvachim, and lamata me'asara tvachim, and also lower than 10 tvachim. Okay. Now here's the thing: what we're talking about over here is the flame, not the menorah. That means that if you have a very tall menorah, yeah, one day you'll get, when you get married, you'll buy a big menorah. I don't suggest you buy it now because you're not going to use it for the next 15 years that you're running around doing the flame every Chanukah and going away to yeshiva. But eventually, when you get married, then you settle down and you have a big menorah, tall menorah. So now you're going to put it on a table, and all of a sudden, especially the table is already 10 tvachim, or it's just below 10 tvachim. And if you have a tall menorah, now you're going to be 20 tvachim, or whatever, or 15 tvachim. So the flame, meaning the flame, that's what we're really concerned about, the flame. Some people say the candle is included, meaning if the candle's within that space, it's the same. Okay, but either way, we use oil, so the flame would be right on top of the menorah. So that flame should be within that measurement of 3 tvachim and 10 tvachim, which is basically 9.5. No, not the shamash, we don't care. Which is basically 9.5 inches to 30 inches. Okay, so therefore. Now, one second. Now, let's say you put it that it's taller than 10 tvachim. You have kids around, you need it on a table, and plus it's on top of that. Yatsa, it's not a problem. As long, and I'll explain in a second, as long as it's not going to be taller than 20 amis, which is basically 30 something feet, yeah? Each one's a foot and a half, so it's like 30, 30 something feet. It's a little bit more than that, so it comes out to 30 something, whatever. But as long as it's not higher than that, once it's higher than that, lo yatsa, then already you're not even yatsa in the first place. Because, and this we had it in the Gemara of Sukkah also right away in the first Mishnah, that if you have something that's higher than 20 ames, then your eyes don't really sense it. You don't see it. If you're walking down the street, you're not going to see a menorah that's so tall, higher than what your eyes perceive. Therefore, the menorah should never be higher than that. So any kosher menorah, any big Chabad menorah that you know of is always going to be lower than 20 amas, or right at the threshold. And that's where you get into arguments of which is the tallest one. You're the tallest in New York, tallest in Brooklyn. You have machlekes. Yeah. It's the same reason. One of the reasons. Right. One of the reasons we said was, no, for sure, that's the halacha. We're not sure if that's relevant to Sukkot. You have to see the Sukkah. So that was the machlekes in the Gemara. But for here, where the whole point is to see it, for sure, 20 amas matters. Fine. So this would be, this is number one. Now, umishu dor baliyah. So what happens if a person lives in a building? Yeah, you live in a building, and you happen to live on the 6th floor, let's say, which is generally 50, 60 feet tall. So then, so the Kitzur says you could put it in the window if you're lower than 20 amas. Even though it's more than 10 tvachim from the ground. If it's more than 20 amas off the floor, then from the karka of the Shulchan Abim, so then the loy shalta be'ena, no one's going to see it anyways. So azai, then, like we said before, you're trying to do sumei nisa for the people on the street, but none of them are going to see it. It's too tall. So therefore, it's better to put it inside your house. So I think there was a story once that the Rebbe was walking home on Eastern Parkway, and I think he came to the corner of Brooklyn and Eastern Parkway, and there's a building there. So maybe it's in New York and Eastern Parkway, where he used to live. So maybe New York, Eastern, or maybe he was going a different direction, whatever. The story was that he saw someone had his menorah on one of the top floors, and I think he spoke about it by Farbrengen, and he said that there's two reasons why basically it doesn't really make sense to do that. Number one, because of this reason, that if it's higher than 20 amas, then no one in the street sees it. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to do Persumi Nisa. No one's going to see it. So who are you doing Persumi Nisa for? Your family. And that guy, and probably a lot of people, have a menorah that has a back on it. So that means that you're facing it towards the street, and no one in the house could see it, and no one in the street sees it. So the whole thing is bracha levatala, as they say. So anyways, the point is, if you live in those types of places, you would put it inside your house by the door, which is, again, our minhag anyways, so it wouldn't really matter. Now, one second. Let's go quickly to Zion for a second on the bottom. When we were talking about the shear of where to put it, so he says in the bottom like this: Ma'amidim ha'menorah al kisei. There is an Indian that you should put the menorah on a chair, yeah, not the table, a chair, because again the same. You don't want to get too tall, and a table is already 10 tvachim. So you want to put it on a chair. Now, one of the reasons is that. Another reason also is because it's very disrespectful if you take a menorah and you put it on the floor, or even if it's within 3 tvachim of the floor. It's just, you're doing a mitzvah. It's not covered of the mitzvah. You're not showing, and if it's 2 floor, another reason why, by the way, close to 3 tvachim of the floor was a problem, besides for lavud, another issue is that the whole point is people should see it. But when something is so close to the floor, people don't necessarily notice it right away. So the whole idea is that people should see that there's a miracle, unless it like protrudes a little bit off the ground, they're not going to notice it. So those are a few different reasons. So therefore, it should be on a chair. And this way it's elevated slightly. But again, within that frame, within that space that we mentioned before of 3 and 10 tvachim. Now, we're not meduyik that the flame should be right above 7 tvachim or very close to 3 tvachim. So for this, I never understood actually till this year. Mamish today, I was looking up to figure out exactly what it's talking about. Apparently, al pi Kabbalah, there is an Indian that the flame should be right above 7 tvachim. I don't know why, but the Rebbe clearly says over here in Sefer Menagim that we don't care, we're not sensitive to that, and therefore the candles could be anywhere in between, and it doesn't have to be dafka above 7. It doesn't matter. One second, yeah.
chair, then I can die whether it's 3 or 100. That's the reason.
No, you still want it to be within 3 and 10, 12.
No, but I'm saying we're not gonna die. We're not gonna die in that because once it's on the chair, we don't need to.
No, so yeah, but not necessarily, because if you have a tall, you'll see if I don't know what you guys use at home, but if you take a regular tall menorah, if you put it on a chair, it might actually be taller than 30. It might be taller. But I use in my house, I have it's like the kids have a table, and with the kids table, there's a then a taka, and I have a taller, not so tall, but it's a taller menorah. So then a taka is within that. Also, by the way, if you put it on the floor, let's say you have a tall one and you have no option. If you want to get it within there, you have to put it basically on the floor. So if you can't do that, you should at least put a like a plate or something on the ground underneath the menorah, and then the menorah with the flames will be in the right position. But you should put something on the floor. It shouldn't be directly on the floor. It's a mitzvah. It's a bizui mitzvah to have a menorah sitting on the floor. Yeah.
No, everybody knows Bubba's gonna fly.
Okay, whatever. Forget it. Let's skip that. It was just some people mentioned it. There was a connection to the Gemara, so I just wanted to bring it up. But that's not the main thing. The main thing I said is that it's not respectful. Number one, people won't notice it, and if it's mamish on the floor, it's not respectful. So that's it. Okay, we'll leave that. I'm not going to get into it. We'll leave it for that. Yeah. What? I thought you had a question. Okay. Oh, sorry.
So what's the level and itself?
It's totally kosher. Oh, you're saying if the menorah itself is more than 10 tvachim? It's totally kosher. You have up to 20 amas. There is an idea that between 3 and 10 tvachim, so people notice it right away. Plus, it stands out that this is special for the mitzvah. So that's it. But other than that, it's totally kosher. You could have it. Most people, again, when you have kids, young kids at home, a lot of people don't want to have it too low. The kids grab it, it's dangerous. So a lot of people, for most of their life, they're going to end up having it taller anyways. And that's totally fine. There's no issue. If you could, you do it within that, within there, yeah.
Looks too much.
Maybe, but it could be eye levels to normal. You always do it there. I don't know. As I state. Okay, there's some of it is api Kabbalah, like I said, but some of it is other reasons. I don't really know. Okay. Tess. The candles, when you have them in the menorah, which by us is not such a big deal because it's basically built in that way, they should be in a straight line. It shouldn't be one taller and one shorter. Now, this is an interesting halacha that there's not a lot of sources for. The Kitzur is one source, and I think I saw that someone else says, and maybe the Lavush or something, that you don't want it to be taller and shorter. You don't really see that, and it looks like it's their own thing that they came up with for some reason. The reason we mentioned why you don't have it round, that we said, because it will look like a torch. But up and down, what's the big deal? Especially sometimes you have candles, and candles will burn at different things. So they're going to be up and down anyways. So I don't know where he gets it from. I did see somewhere where they said one of the reasons, I forgot what it was. There was some reason given, but okay, listen, the Kitzur is a source to itself. Either way, nowadays we basically do them pretty straight in a line anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But technically, if you're traveling somewhere and you only have one that goes like that, it could be that it's kosher. I'm not sure. So you could look into it more. But definitely, we try not to for these reasons. Now, so number one, it should be in a straight line. Number two, we're using oil, but even oil candles, either way, you should have a separation. So number one, number one, you don't want the flames to get too close to each other, and then it becomes a torch, even though they're not touching, but they're so close that the flames will touch. And also, if you're using candles, you should make a separation. They shouldn't get too hot from one another, and then the whole thing will melt. So there was a small menorah that I found once. I don't know. I used it once when traveling. I don't know, and they were too close to each other, and it melted. A lot of it melts. So you have to be careful. I think there was my menorah that I bought from my bar mitzvah, which apparently I lost, but over here somewhere. But it was a nice menorah, silver. But it was pretty small, but oil, so it didn't matter. But the shamish would always melt. I had a hard time with the shamish. So after like night 5, I couldn't use the shamish anymore. I borrowed someone else's. So you have to know it's a problem if it melts for many, many reasons, obviously. What? What do you mean? No, yeah. I know I used it. I was saying, but the shamish I had to stop using after the 5th night because then already it was too many flames, too many fires. Fine. Now, mile kaira shaman v'kifa psilis. What happens if you take a plate or a bowl, like we mentioned this a couple of days ago, and you put oil inside and you put a bunch of wicks inside? So it's not good because it's all one thing. You don't have separate candles. But in kafaleh kli, if you put a kli before you light it, and that kli had holes inside of it, which was common in those days, they would have one, like we said, one, like, if you ever go to 770, and we spoke about this before. you ever go to 770, sometimes by the Chazin's place, I don't know if they still have it, but they built in like a strip that they would fill with the fuel that they use, and then they just had a bunch of holes inside with wicks, and that would be, that's what they would use. So there's one oil source in the bottom and just a few wicks coming out in separate places. So here they did the same. You had a bunch of wicks inside, and the oil was inside, and you lit it. So if you lit it, no good. But if you covered it with a keli, so now they're shearing the same oil, but each wick is coming out of a designated place. So then, every single wick will count as a separate candle, and you're allowed to do that. If you didn't put a kli, or you put the kli after it was already lit, so it's too late, because as we said, the mitzvah is when you light it, not later. And therefore, it doesn't even count as one candle, it counts as nothing. Because like we said before, it becomes a torch. And once it's a torch, you're not yotze with it in any way. Now, so what happens if you have a candle that had a few different wicks? 2 people shouldn't use it. Even, right, you have the big candles sometimes that have a few wicks. 2 people shouldn't use it. Even on the first night, meaning where you're only lighting one, each one is only lighting one. Because again, similar to the issue we mentioned before, that no one's going to know how many, what night it is. Is it one person lighting 2 nights? Is it 2 people lighting 1 night? So therefore, you shouldn't use it. As we mentioned before, that nowadays where we're using a menorah, so you don't have the same concern. You can have one person lighting on one side, one person lighting on the other side, and it's enough of a siman that this is out of the ordinary that it would be okay. All right, let's. You know what? Yud is going to be a whole nother thing, and you guys have a video in 2 minutes, so we'll stop here. And good Yantif.
Yeah.